Hello again, everybody. This is Fred Kranz from St. Ange, here today with another episode of Taking the Supply Chain Pulse. Today, we are honored to have Mark Van Sumeren, a man for all seasons and a man who has seen healthcare and the healthcare supply chain from many different perspectives. Mark is a 2021 inductee in the Bellwether League's National Healthcare Supply Chain Hall of Fame and a former we weren't really colleagues. He was a big shot. I was just a little dude working at Capgemini. So, Mark, good to see you. Thanks for coming.
Fred, thanks you for the introduction. I have to tell you, the honor is mine. When you reached out and asked if I would consider to do this, I think my answer couldn't come out quickly enough. It was certainly yes. I think you're doing a great thing, and I've always enjoyed my interactions with you. You're a unique and treasured asset in this industry. So thank you.
Okay, the check will be there tomorrow. Okay.
Thank you.
Anyway, Mark, one of the things about your background, and we should go through this. Usually, my first question is tell us about who you are and how you got to where you are today. But we sort of can march through everything you've done from where you started to where you are today, because the one thing that I've tried to do with this podcast is introduce a lot of hardworking people that don't get to go to conferences and don't get out and meet really influential folks to people that they might not be fortunate enough to meet, and to see and experience different viewpoints from different places within the industry. And you really have a ton of bases covered. So why don't you tell us about how you started out, where you were along the way, what you did at each place. And there's one position title that I need you to explain, and that is at Logisource, you're a strategic advisor and board observer. Is the board that bad that they have to be observed at Logisource?
No, that's an excellent point. Board observer is actually a formalized role in the probably in the public or privately funded world. And what it means is that you have all the rights and obligations and participation at a board level. You just don't have a vote. And that happens to be, it's a private equity backed company. And they value, hopefully, my ideas and insight at the board level, but I don't get to take a vote on any of the governance matters.
I thought they were shady and needed someone to keep an eye on them.
No, not by any stretch. Not by any stretch.
So tell us about yourself and how you got to where you are today.
Okay, Fred. Some people might say it's that I'm just schizophrenic, or said in a different light, it's that I've got this insatiable appetite for learning and doing different things. So over, really what's been a 45 plus year career. I've been all over the healthcare industry and dealing with a lot of different roles, organizations, and that sort of thing. So just in a nutshell, I started out of undergraduate as a management engineer at what is now the Detroit Medical Center. So I was doing nurse staffing, pharmacy unit dose, productivity type standards, so a lot of operation work. At the time, I was finishing my MBA. And once that was finished, I joined what was then Ernst and Whinney, which was the precursor to Ernst & Young, and then Capgemini, Ernst & Young, where you and I met up. But I was hired there to do operations consulting. Again, it was a lot of productivity work, nurse staffing work, and the like. And I did that for several years before getting antsy again, and became a market leader in the state of Wisconsin for the practice, and really had oversight to everything that we're doing, whether it be finance, reimbursement, mergers and acquisitions. So it really gave me a flavor for a broader view of the healthcare industry. And also that allowed me to stay engaged and meaningful and productive for 20 years. So I when I went to E&W at the time, I said I would do it for 2 years. I'd go back into hospital administration, which is what my passion was at the time. And every 2 years, I kept finding facet of where I could deal with my customers and deal with smart people like you, Fred, and the others that we had an opportunity to work with. And so I kept evolving in that role. And as I moved up from senior consultant ultimately to partner in the firm, the last responsibility that I took charge of was to launch and then oversee our healthcare supply chain practice. E&Y at the time had a tremendous supply chain practice outside of healthcare, had a lot of great practitioners inside of healthcare, and we organized it into a service line and grew it to, I think at one point we had 100 people, Fred, when we were running that practice. And those people are, now you'll see them all across the industry in very meaningful roles. And so I take great pride in helping to launch and build that practice, but more importantly, really launch and advance the careers of dozens of really great people who are making an impact. Well, from what was then Capgemini, after the sale of the practice to the French firm, I was recruited to join Owens Minor, first to start and build their consulting practice, but very quickly moved into a different role, one that was much more critical at that point in time, and that was to be the chief strategist and business intelligence officer. And so this would have been in 2004, roughly. And if you recall that that was a fairly critical time in the evolution of healthcare distribution and Owens Minor in particular, making the transition from being an acute med-surg distributor serving only hospitals in the United States to an international provider and manufacturer, and not only acute care but non-acute as well. So it was really launching that movement. Well, in 2014, I decided that the career had gone on long enough, and there was a convergence of several factors that said, it's time to retire and let others kind of take the reign and enjoy life, as it were. Well, my wife said, "You're not sitting home for 5 days a week, 24 hours a day, or 7 days a week." She said, "You got to do something." And so quickly thereafter, I joined the board of a private equity-backed company that was in the healthcare laundry business out of the Southeast, Crown Healthcare Laundry. So that was 10 years ago. I joined that board. I continue on that board and through a sale from one private equity group to another, and really have enjoyed that involvement. It led to joining a second board with that same private equity group, and it's in the diagnostic imaging parts and services business, and I continue to be the chair of that board. And then that led to Logisource, where I initially joined on as an advisor to help them move. This was a 15-year-old company serving indirect procurement outside of healthcare with companies like Lululemon and a lot of other retail businesses, Titleist for the golfers in the room. And they saw a need to move into healthcare, so I was helping facilitate that transition. Due to an untimely passing of their healthcare leader, I was asked a year ago, March, to run that vertical for a period of time, and I agreed to do it until we stabilized or got its foot on the ground, and then found a replacement, a full-time replacement, which we did on May 1st, which enabled me to step back into my strategic advisor role, and at the same time take on the board observer role. So. But through all of that, and that was kind of a long-winded answer, but one of the things that I'm quite proud of is that it ranged from operations, productivity, finance, reimbursement, M&A, supply chain, and governance, and dealing with not-for-profit healthcare organization or health systems, to partnership, to a French-owned partnership, to a public company, to a U.S.-based public company, to now private equity-backed company. So I've really gotten an understanding of how the financial or the business model affects how people get things done, how decisions are made, and how it impacts their ability to work with customers and clients as well. So I'll stop there and catch a breath and allow you to ask another follow-up question there, Fred.
Yeah. So as you're in each of these different roles, there are a couple that I would be interested in seeing how manufacturers see healthcare in the supply chain. I'd be interested in seeing overall with your experience in operations and mergers and acquisition and productivity and supply chain and governance, uh, how do you see the healthcare industry as a whole compared to other industries?
Okay,
Let me
that's great.
let me
Yeah.
just for the
Mhm.
folks out there. In 2022, the GDP for the United States was $25.43 trillion, and healthcare comprised 4.4 trillion of that, which is what 17%, which is a huge number. Given all that, that's made up uh, among a whole lot of sort of little guys compared to gigantic industries such as auto and some of the other stuff. So, what's your overall view of healthcare as an industry, and as the way it's led, and the challenges or opportunities that are out there?
Okay, I'll preface my remarks with this comment, and then before I launch into the criticism of the industry, most, if not all of us that have spent our careers in healthcare, um, you, I, the audience listening in, the people we deal with every day, elect to be in this industry by choice. And the choice is driven by a passion for helping people at times of their greatest need. There's something about the makeup of people in this industry that we are passionate about serving others. And as a result, I think we do a lot of great things in this industry. The downside of this is that I think we lose sight of the importance of discipline, of our fiduciary responsibility, of doing things cost effectively, and of being bold. Um, and some of this comes back to I mentioned that I've worked across all types of organizations, from for-profit to not-for-profit to partnerships, etc. And criticize as much as you want of the capitalistic model that our country is built on. But one of the things that it does is it forces us to deal with scarce resource and how to make difficult choices. To a large degree, not completely, that's lost in healthcare because we don't have that same for-profit mentality. Now, I'm not arguing that the industry should go to a for-profit model. I'm arguing that there's a discipline that exists in organizations that are that need to deliver a financial return on a regular basis that does not exist at the same level as it doesn't exist in healthcare at the same level as outside. The ramifications that I see, and I see this every day in dealing with my clients and dealing with my peers and dealing with organizations from the inside as well as the outside, is that we are afraid to make tough choices sometime, or um, we are slow to make those choices because we don't have that financial discipline honed to the degree that it needs to be. Um, and it's a problem. I see customers day after day after day where, as outsiders often come in and say there are ways that money can be saved, where the response is one of, we're afraid of our own shadow, in that I can't move too fast, I can't be too bold, I can't take a risk, even though um, that risk can be appropriately managed, and the financial health of not only the organization, the industry as a whole depends on the ability to move further faster than we've been able to go at this point in time under the current way of thinking and operating. That's a pretty severe condemnation, and I apologize to the people that are offended, but I've seen it too many times that we need to get out of our own way, or somebody's going to do it for us.
Yep. Just to get back to when we worked together at Capgemini, um, and sort of to compare the difference with the type of projects that we did, which were I would call largely non-salary expense reduction projects. We did one in a large academic industry in the system in the South, where we were tasked with taking $19.5 million out of the operating budget, and we were called in by the CEO that was about to retire. We were also interacting with the CFO. And when we come in, it always seemed to me that every time I worked on a major project, we were called in by somebody who thought they were in trouble and needed immediate relief. And then when we walked in, all the people that were there were either frightened by us being there or wanted us out as quickly as possible because they didn't want us to find out what was going on. And we never, with with always with seemingly very little effort, were able to find the dollars quite quickly that they needed to take out of the budget. And my feeling then was that there are a lot of people in these places that had nice positions and were trying to skate to the finish line without as you said about me one time, you spent 50 years and haven't been found out yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
But is that really, is that a fair assumption or
I think
not?
that's a fair assumption that there are a lot of people that and I don't necessarily blame the individual. I blame the system that rewards small steps, that rewards activity as opposed to progress. And I want to reinforce that point in a minute or elaborate on it. And it discourages risk taking. And I don't mean risk that put patients in harm's way. I'm talking about risk that, we're going to have to try something because the status quo is not working for us. And what I see, to elaborate on that point a little bit, is I see people busier than they have ever been, making less progress. We just don't have a sense of urgency and an ability to move as fast as the nature of the challenge requires. That's why consultants are effective. Consultants come in and they cut through all of that, and their incentive is to move quickly and to deliver at a pace and look for the big opportunities and hopefully deliver on them. They're almost hired to overcome the inertia that exists, and we've got to find a way to overcome inertia. Here's the other thing: is that if you ask anyone in the audience, they'll say, "Yeah, healthcare is probably behind from a supply chain perspective, from other perspectives than many other industries," and we'll all say that, and then the same people turn around, and when you say here's an opportunity, they'll say, well, where else has it been done in healthcare, or show me the healthcare benchmarks.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if we're already saying the healthcare is behind, wouldn't you rather see the evidence and what we can learn from other industries that are doing the same thing and are further along and maybe have because of the financial or organizational model behind them, have been more adept at delivering on those, and say, what can we learn from that? Obviously, we need to put the understanding of the healthcare domain and the idiosyncrasies of this market behind it. But we deal a lot in the procurement of things that don't go into patient care. Well, those same things, whether it be marketing or IT or financial services or whatever it is, are also being procured by non-healthcare organizations. So what can we learn from them? Seems to me that That shouldn't be a barrier. That should be an advantage. And we're getting back to that inertia. We go back to, well, I want to see it where it's been done in healthcare. Well, that's great if you want to set the bar low. Let's set the bar higher. We need to.
Yeah, but traditionally the response for the old guys like me was always, yeah, well, healthcare is different. Remember that? We're
Oh yeah.
different than those other industries. But here's the deal. I know that I think you probably, you went to University of Michigan, right? I mean, I
Yeah,
don't know what
the
makes me,
other U of M for you, Fred.
I don't know what makes me think that if we were on camera today and this were a video as well as audio, there's more memorabilia up there than there is in baseball stuff in Cooperstown. But anyway, um, guys like me, the old folks, we came in from the military, many of us, and we learned our way up. Today, we're developing formal, formally educated supply chain leaders. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's long overdue. This influx of supply chain talent that have been trained and educated in the discipline is long overdue in this industry. But we face a challenge. And by the way, there are some outstanding supply chain programs across the country that are building expertise that we should draw upon. Um, I'll even speak of my friends across up the state here. Michigan State has one of the top, if not the top, supply chain programs. Tennessee's great. Arizona State's great. Georgia Tech is great. Um, and I could go on and on. Penn State has an outstanding program. I'm not leaving anybody out because there are a number of great ones. The challenge we have as an industry is other industries have figured out how valuable those folks are, and they're hiring them away. And are we willing to reward and compensate those people at the same level that our brethren outside of healthcare are doing? Um, and look at the high flying companies over the last 10 or 20 years. What you really find is that they're high flying because they figured out supply chain and how to build a business model around an effective, efficient, um, time sensitive supply chain organization and are delivering just tremendous value as a result of it. We've come a long way in healthcare, bringing supply chain back out of the materials management purchasing days in the basement where nobody knows who you are, keep them in the dark corner, to where, at least there's, in many cases, there's a seat at the table, but we've got a long way to go still in terms of the strategic role of supply chain in the healthcare business decision making model, and building supply chain organizations of the scale necessary to really make a difference in this industry.
Yeah, uh, that's true that we are making progress, but I've always thought that number one, supply chain has operated on the principle of heroic intervention. We're at our
Yeah,
best when something goes bad and we can pull a rabbit out of a hat and point to it for 4 years. And then immediately after that situation has passed, it's back to business as before, which is lower your prices and get rid of people. Those are the
yeah, yeah.
two things that you hear. And we want to become strategic, but we have done this. I want you to respond to this. I don't think we, as supply chain folks, have demonstrated, many of us, that we are worthy of being considered strategic by our actions in the past. And that's the hurdle we got to jump over.
Yeah, yeah. There. Of course, there are people, and you and I could name a dozen of them that are really making an impact. That are strategic thinkers um, in this field, and they're pushing the envelope, and they're in the executive suite. They're part of the strategic thinking in the organization, but that it's not nearly at the level that it should be as the norm in this industry. And some of that is a lack of awareness and appreciation of the impact that true supply chain, strategic supply chain leadership can be. Part of it is, it goes back to the point you made, quite frankly, is that uh, there are people that are that don't want to push that envelope, particularly, late in their career, that's a big test. We need some people earlier in their career, younger, that have a voice, that think strategically, that think beyond lowest unit price and think about impact on the organization, think about strategic partnerships, that think about, you know, supply chain from the point of sourcing all the way through to delivery, but from a end-to-end view. And a lot of those, are going to come out of industry. They're going to come out of academia or advanced training, but we're going to have to give them the authority, the responsibility, and the seat at the table. And frankly, some of us at our age, Fred, that are in those seats in the health system that, are going to have to step aside and make room for these people to take it beyond where we've been able to this point.
Yeah, and a couple things. Number one, being active, as are you, with the Bellwether League. We see a lot of the future famers and the young folks that are there that are really impressive, and I know are going to take things further. A second thing that I think is a real possibility out there, and I think more organizations should think about it, is using us old folks in a different role, letting us become advisors and mentors and interim transitionary leaders to identify people that are newcomers that can be leading supply chains, and sort of hooking onto them for a year or two to get them to the point where they can take the reins.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a role to get. We need to get out of the way of the younger folks. That's my
Yes,
opinion. But we need to be able
absolutely.
to help. We need to be able to help them too.
Yeah, yeah.
So
There's we're at an interesting point in the healthcare supply chain, in that there are a lot of people that have carried they carried the water for getting us from the days when we were we're down in the basement. Boy, don't even think about getting involved with physician preference items. Remember that
right.
it was way too important to leave it to the procurement experts. We've come a long way. This generation, our generation of supply chain leaders, have really accomplished a lot. There's a whole lot more to be accomplished. And we probably don't have the runway to do it. So let's mentor the people and give them the opportunities that those people that have the smarts. They're a lot brighter than you and I are by
Oh yeah.
by a long shot. They've got the runway. They've got the political skills, in my view, to be able to pull off. They need some mentoring, and they need some coaching, and they need some people like us to run interference and say it's okay to take some of these risks, or you really need to listen to these people and rethink the way that we're doing these things.
Yeah, a lot of that is they probably need some coaching in that 90% of the job that's political, so that they
Yeah,
can do the 50% that's operational.
absolutely. Yeah, well
But
put. Well
hey,
put.
one
Yeah.
one thing I wanted to, before we go, one thing I wanted to ask you from your O&M days. Um, there's a whole lot of folks. The larger IDNs are becoming pretty much legitimate standalone supply chains, or they're doing partnerships with some of the distributors. Like,
Mhm.
um, what do you think is a transitioning role and challenge for traditional distributors such as O&M?
Well, like any organization, uh, you know, business models need to evolve with the times. And traditional distribution grew up. Remember, there were 7,000 independent hospitals in this country when I
Right.
started my career. Um, there are probably 4,000 hospitals now, and the majority are part of larger systems that provide the geographic concentration that you can um, deliver the things that you needed, kind of a third party distribution to accomplish. That doesn't mean, however, that every product needs to go direct from manufacturer to the receiving dock. The economics of that don't work either. Um, but the distributors need to continue to morph along the lines of where is the value that comes from um, consolidating the logistics as well as the information, and providing predictability, and service levels in that chain. Um, and it doesn't, the model of everything comes bulk from the manufacturer, and then gets repackaged, relotted, if you will, to go back to or to go to the health system. It just doesn't work that same way, because the business, the needs have changed. So you've got to evolve with it. I don't think the role of the intermediary goes away. I think it changes. The same thing with the GPOs. The GPOs were formed to consolidate group purchasing power, amongst these 7,000 hospitals. Well, the big systems have enough clout, and by the way, have pretty substantial ability to commit to the volume that they commit to, unlike unrelated parties that are part of a GPO. Does that mean the GPO should all go away? Absolutely not. The model has to change to fit the times. And I think we're living through that struggle with both of those types of intermediaries at this point in time. And, the work's not done yet.
Yeah. Interesting. So are you overall optimistic about healthcare supply chain future, or are you undecided?
Well, I'm by nature an optimist, so I'm going to take that side of it. But it comes with a challenge, and that is, what was the phrase? I think it was a book: "Lead, follow, get out of the way."
Right.
We need some leadership to affect a transition, and to stop hanging on to the way we've always done things.
Yeah, that's the ultimate
And
argument
part
we
of
always
that, by
hear.
the way, and this gets back to the role of the health system, the supply chain, vis-a-vis the intermediaries. Well-run supply chain organizations in other industries, it's not a zero-sum game. It's not all us or all them. It's where do you find the appropriate balance in who is best qualified to perform what role in that chain. I've seen this pendulum go from, it should all be distribution to it should all be in-house, because we're going to attach ourselves to that outrageous less than 1% profit margin that the distributors make.
Right.
No, I mean that's foolhardy. Do what you're best at, and get really, really good at it. That does not mean that you should be doing everything.
Right. Well, Mark, this has been really good. Now I have a question that's got nothing to do with what we talked about. I know that you're a proud Michigan alum, and as a University of Miami alumnus, Ohio State is my second favorite team too, with everyone else's number one. Uh, so I want to ask you this question. 1997, Michigan won a national championship. They had a guy named Brian Greasy playing quarterback. Subsequent to that, they had this other guy that was a walk-on, slow dude that was um, became quarterback named Tom something or Tom Brady. So who was a better quarterback in college, Greasy or Brady?
Well, the answer to that is quite easy. First of all, as a correction, Brian Greasy was the walk-on, and Tom Brady was a scholarship, but he
Oh,
was
really?
fourth string on that team.
Oh, okay.
But in 1997, Brian Greasy was the best quarterback on that team, and he earned that role, and he delivered on it. Now, Tom Brady, what he has said repeatedly since that time, and he's a competitor. He's an uber competitor, as we all know. His reaction to that was to work harder, to make himself better. So Tom Brady became Tom Brady, and part of which because he languished on the bench behind three other pretty darn good quarterbacks. Brian Greasy went and had a decent NFL career,
Right.
not quite the same as Tom Brady, but Brian Greasy was better prepared to lead that team in 1997, and it showed. Now, the postscript on that is that Tom Brady then fought Drew Henson for the starting position a year later. Drew Henson was the All-American out of high school in both baseball and football. He was the shiny object, and Lloyd Card tried to give them both the opportunity. And just about every time that Drew Henson started a game in '98, Tom Brady came in and cleaned up and won the games for them. So that year, I would argue that Tom Brady was the best quarterback in the team, even though he was only a part-time starter.
Boy, that was a truly political answer. I got to give you that.
I speak the truth.
I know.
Speak
I
it
know
as I
you do.
feel it.
I know
But
you do. Hey, Mark, it's been great having you on, and I want to thank you. It's always great to see and talk with you, and your insights are excellent, and I think this has been good for everyone. So thanks for joining us, and hope to have you on again sometime in the future.
Fred, it was my pleasure. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for inviting me to participate, and hopefully people take away a few good thoughts and weren't overly offended by my challenge to us as practitioners in the industry. We've got more we can do. We have to believe in ourselves and believe in those that are coming behind us.
Okay, well, I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. Okay, Mark, thanks. Have a great week, and we'll see you maybe at Aram and for certain at the Bellwether League ceremonies in October. So talk to you
Absolutely.
later.
Thank you, Fred.
Bye. Thanks again, everybody, for listening to our podcast, Taking the Supply Chain Pulse. Subscribe, follow, and give us your comments for topics, for improvements. And if you know some people that you think we should be interviewing, please tell us about them too. I can be reached at fcrans, C-R-A-N-S, at stonge, S-T-O-N-G-E.com. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again. See you next time.